Healthcare up in the polls. Let's play hardball. Good evening. I'm Chris Matthews in Washington. Let me start tonight with the thunder now on the right. One leader compared it to 9/11, an attack out of the sky. One conservative in the media world branded the Chief Justice of the United States a traitor. Rush Limbaugh called the Supreme Court itself a death panel. If you ever wondered which side has gotten this country into a partisan crazy world, listen to the souls now screaming from the starboard side. The lunatic right feels burnt and is raving mad, raving with rage that they couldn't destroy the country's only health care plan. Don't believe this soft line you hear about repeal and replace. This fury on the right isn't looking for a better health care plan. It's looking to destroy the only one there's ever been. Our guests tonight, David Court of Mother Jones and Joe Conason of National Memo. Gentlemen, it's great to have you on tonight. True believers, and I think we need some true believers. This reaction from the screwball right, is that a precursor of the fact that Romney will fight this thing right through November, the health care bill?
I think Romney has a big decision to make here. If you look at the poll numbers, the country is kind of split on the decision on health care reform.
Well, let's go to that point. Okay. Gallup just polled Americans after the Supreme Court decision of yesterday. They found the country, as you say, well, you couldn't say it better, evenly split. 46 all. 46 disagree, 46 agree. And among independents, which are going to decide the election, there's a 3-point split, this one favoring the president, 45 to 42.
So it's basically a toss-up, right, Chris?
Right.
And so it doesn't give him an advantage to start banging against this decision. I think a lot of voters, particularly independent voters, are kind of done and don't want to hear this anymore.
How's he appeal to the nuts?
But the other thing, this is a way to drive his base out if he still is worried about his base, which he shouldn't be, but if he is. But the other thing, too, is if he starts going into repeal, I've talked to the Obama campaign people. They are prepared. They are ready to go toe-to-toe with him on all the wonderful provisions within the bill that get 60 to 80%, approval ratings. The kids on insurance, pre-existing conditions. They know that Obamacare as an abstract concept is split 50-50 in the public. But if you look at those provisions, they have a lot of ammo to go after Romney if his position is going to be get rid of it.
What's your bet? He goes to fight this thing, or he cools his jets?
My bet is that it trails off, but you have the guys in the House. Don't forget, they're going to have a repeal vote in a week or two. They may still press on.
I think they have a different agenda, which is to try to win their little fight. Joe, thanks for joining us tonight. I think that's the hot question. Let's ask this. We all watched that performance by the president and his opponent yesterday. The president was out there saying, move on, basically had other things to fight about. Romney seemed to be coming out loaded for bear up on the top of that building. He was at some insurance building somewhere in Washington he was yelling from. This guy sounds like he wants to fight this bill. Do you think that's right or not? Or with David, he hasn't decided?
Well, I think it's a tough choice for him because I think it's a trap. If he decides to continue the discussion about this, here's the answer from the White House. The part that you were for in Massachusetts, that we took from you, the individual mandate, is the least popular part of this bill. What David was talking about is right. Every other provision of the bill enjoys, anywhere between 62 to 80% plus support among voters, including Republicans. So it's a bad discussion for him to get into because the more you talk about it, the more people are going to realize what they like about the bill is what President Obama did. And then Obama has to say, you know what? This is how we pay for these benefits. There is no way to make this bill work without the individual mandate. He can be the stern, sort of daddy who says, in order to have these benefits, we have to pay for them. And this is how everybody kicks in, which is what Romney said.
Yeah, but can he fight Romney on that and say, you can't come along? I was quoting Roosevelt the other night saying, whenever Roosevelt had to fight the right on something, he would say, they always come along later and say, we could have done it for you, too, and it wouldn't have cost you anything. Well, here's Mike Allen, I think, making a good point, guys. He wrote in Playbook today in response to the president's Supreme Court victory yesterday, and it was very prescient when you look at the polls today. Obama looks like a winner, and you can't underestimate the subtle impact that has on casual voters. The attack on Obama that has tested best with focus groups incompetent in over his head is now in tatters. So this is backed up. The fact that Obama looks competent, looks strong. Look at these numbers today. A couple of days ago, health care was down around 30, 28, the individual mandate, up around 46 even now. So he's already pulled even in just 24 hours.
Not only does he look like a winner, Mitt Romney runs the risk of looking like a right-wing whiner. fighting again, something that a lot of people want to move on, and having nothing to say about these key issues except platitudes. So winning there's nothing better in politics, you know this, than winning. People want their president to come across as
anything better anywhere than winning?
But they want the president to come across as a strong leader, and not to be pushed around by the opposition or by the Supreme Court. Romney's out there pandering to the base, flip-flopping on the mandate. This is a very difficult case for him to make.
I'm with you. I remember, I'm older than you guys. I got to tell you, I'm working for Carter as a speechwriter back when I had that hat on. I got to tell you, Joe, when he lost that marathon race, that 10K race, which he said he was going to win, they're looking for signs, the voters out there. Has he got strength or not? Some of it's emblematic, some of it's just, human. Well, and at this time, I think if he had lost this one yesterday, I'll go back to where he was yesterday, Joe. Tell me if I'm right. If he had lost it would have been much bigger than he wanted.
That's absolutely right. A win is a win. And the problem that Romney has now is the president has won this. The Republicans in Congress want to still fight the last election. They won big in 2010 on this issue, and a lot of them still want to fight that fight. That's not good for their presidential nominee.
Well, here's Romney campaigning out with a new web video in response to the court decision of yesterday. Let's watch this one.
In a few months, Americans will cast their ballots and make a choice. Do we continue stifling our economy with a growing government that discourages hiring? Or do we chart a new course and change directions? The Supreme Court may have made their decision, but the American people haven't.
Is to make sure that the next president of the United States repeals Obamacare and replaces Obamacare.
Day one, job one, repeal Obamacare.
Well, wait a minute. Doesn't he have some other number ones? Wasn't it the Keystone Pipeline was number one?
He has a lot of number ones.
How many HR ones this guy got in his barrel?
The key thing to look for, Chris,
you know this. You'll find out what's number one.
It's easy to do a web ad. It doesn't cost you anything. Yeah. Are they going to put money and put these ads in swing states? Particularly, we talked about the Obama campaign. They've already targeting women, targeting Hispanic voters, have used health care in a proactive way as a positive. So they think, if you ask the Hispanic voters, they put health care actually as number one in a lot of surveys. So is he going to air this?
Hispanic voters are very high on health care.
So is he going to put this ad up in Virginia, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico? Arizona. I don't know if he's going to do that.
Well, let's talk about the targeting of this ad. You saw can you see it, Joe? It was a young guy. He had sort of a designer stubble. Looks like this is kind of cool guy. He's in his 20s. I was trying to figure out who they talking to. This guy's a little bit of a rebel, just a little bit. He didn't shave today. But is that their target? A young guy, a male in his 20s, maybe mid to late 20s? What's that all about? Is that the guy that guy might not even vote? Just thinking.
That guy might not even vote, and the likelihood, based on everything we know about young voters, is that he's not going to vote for Mitt Romney. I think this is the same. Goes to the same issue. The way the polls are now going after yesterday, we're going to see a shift in intensity on health care from the strong intensity opposed of the last election to a stronger intensity in favor in this election.
How do you know?
Well, because what the polls show, evening out in the Gallup poll, which is not particularly favorable to Democrats traditionally, is very different from what we had, a few weeks ago on the same issue. I think you're right that the Supreme Court decision makes people rethink this, and it makes them rethink it in the middle of the electorate. And for Democrats, having won, a victory is something they're going to want to defend, and the intensity grows around that.
Let's talk about the second term. Obama has to, at some point between now and the end of this summer, at the convention, certainly draw a picture of the second term.
Right.
Had he lost this fight, he would have said, look at what I'm going to do in the second term, walking in with basically an empty slate on the first term, on his major issue. Right. This way he can say, I did this year, I can do stuff.
Yes.
I can make history. I I can make more history. Had he been blown away on the main building block of this administration, I think he would have had a hard time saying. So again, I go back to where I was yesterday. The biggest stakes yesterday where he could have lost.
Oh, yeah. I mean, often in politics, a win can easily sort of blow away quickly, but a loss just hangs on. Same thing with the bin Laden raid. If that raid had gone south and gone bad, it would have sunk him, and the hurrahs that he got for it quickly faded in the surveys. But I do think that you're right. If he wants to make a case to the American public that he should stay in the job because he can do things primarily about the economy and about jobs, he has to be able to say, listen, I did stuff before and it stuck. It worked out. That's the key thing.
Okay, last quickly, Joe, this is to me a big story because it's an upset victory. Your thought?
Well, yes, it is. And I think, to go back to what you were saying a minute ago, this victory makes it easier to talk about all the other things that he actually has done, like auto, like stimulus, all of the other progress. Bin Laden has a bedrock now, which is the biggest accomplishment.
Well said. And by the way, it was an upset. I'll stick to that. Is Lee Atwater said years ago, the guy on the other side of some of these fights said, David's still getting good PR for beating Goliath.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway,
exactly.
Thank you, David Korn. Thank you, Joe Conason. Have a nice weekend.